Good evening, folks. Festin here, and welcome to another episode of Cartoon Theory. Now, what makes episodes of some of my favorite TV shows like VeggieTales, for example, bad? Obviously things like characters being annoying, boring stories, terrible jokes, or lack thereof, and so forth are the reasons why we hate these episodes, but I want to figure out what is the major cause of these things. I highly doubt that writers go into an episode intentionally trying to make things annoying to the audience or dull or boring or anything like that. So how does it turn out that way? My theory is that the reason is that how most of the bad episodes come to be is that they feature plots or jokes that simply didn't work. Let's take the end of silliness for example, a VeggieTales episode I reviewed about 6 years ago. The reason this episode's bad is mostly because of one thing: Larry being a mopey and depressed person who doesn't even bother to leave the ice cream shop. Other than that, there isn't much wrong with the episode aside from the unnecessary sing-along format and the lack of jokes. So, if you were someone who finds the whole plot of Larry being upset over losing his silly songs to be entertaining and funny, and hey, no judgment here if you do, then this episode would be great to you, as it would have a ton of jokes about the subject that it would probably find good and funny, and wouldn't see a problem with the story. Now keep in mind that for every type of plot point there are a million ways to present it, and some are simply going to work better than others. Honestly, I believe anything can be entertaining and funny under the right circumstances, and I have found that the whole depressing thing can work on occasions like the Sesame Street special Big Bird in Japan. Yet I don't like how the plot is presented in the end of silliness, and all of that just comes down to the details. Like how stupid Archibald was to cancel Larry's silly songs despite not firing Larry himself from the show. Maybe without that, the plot would work better. Maybe having Larry realize that's not the end of the world and can go out and find another job would have helped the story. Maybe something as simple as the timing of the sing-along format and the jokes were just a bit off. And if it was a little bit different, it would have been a lot better. For whatever reason, though, I do not find these gags in the end of silliness to be funny, and without the comedy factor, you're not as entertained, and therefore more likely to get irritated or bored and will pick apart the story in ways you never would have if you found the episode good. Another example is the Hey Arnold episode, Arnold Betrays Iggy. I like the episode, but I will admit that the story felt a bit out of place. Yet, I don't care as much because I found the whole episode to be funny. Ultimately, a lot of it comes down to how funny or unfunny you found Helga, Sid, and Stinky being mean to Iggy is. And if you thought the ending was satisfying or really stupid, and those two things will determine whether or not you like this episode. And I would assume that in these cases, the writers simply thought something was funny and the audience members just as agree. And that's just part of creating art. It's also important to note that the writer's taste can be different from a fan's taste. Remember, writing for an animated show is very different from being a fan of it. When the writers are making an episode, the characters are just rough ideas they're trying to shape up, whereas when we see the episode, it's a finalized product with the magic of animation and voice acting and everything bringing the character to life. Sometimes, though, there are episodes and moments that most of the cartoon fandom can agree are just absolutely terrible and pretty far away from being entertaining or funny. Things like Arthur's Big Hit, putting all the blame on Arthur and not DW. Save the Date's portrayal of Lori berating Lincoln for insulting Ronnie Ann. Town and Out for treating the Powerpuff Girls like outcasts. And the Old Switcheroos and Dexter Detention for treating Dexter like a punching bag. What happened in those instances? Did the writer just say, let's throw in some trash that we know people won't like, just for fun? But I'm pretty sure the writers of these shows are never intentionally putting in things that they think people will hate. In these instances, it's entirely possible there really was a good plot and joke in there, but something screwy happened between the script, storyboard, and final animation that may have messed up the plot and joke. You also gotta remember that making an animated show is a collaborative effort, and sometimes things become goofed up in the process between the writer and the final product. Maybe one writer found something funny and another didn't, and the compromise pleased no one. There are a ton of things that could go wrong when this many people have their hand in the writer's vision. Even though these shows make money, they only get a tiny fraction of that for its budget, and they have a deadline, meaning that they can't just immediately redo things they come back from themselves, Canada, or Korea that they aren't happy with. So give the writer some slack. Yes, these episodes are still terrible. I'm not saying that knowing this makes them any better, but it was most likely just a mistake that someone else made, or maybe even just an accident, and it's not something intentionally made by a writer to be bad. So there you go. When a story fails, it could have a big negative effect on how you view an episode that someone else who laughed at that joke will completely disagree on. It's important to keep in mind that people have different perspectives and interpretations, and comedy is very subjective. Also, what a writer finds entertaining and funny, an audience member may not. And additionally, a lot of things in the production process can screw up a joke or a moment thanks to how complicated it is. But hey, reviewing a bad episode is not about playing the blame game. It's about discussing the merits of the art. I just wanted to make this video to point out that a lot of things that people wonder, like, how did they make Lori so unlikable in that one episode, are things that were probably just a mistake or a miscommunication, or just something not translating very well from script to storyboard to final animation. Or just something that the writer found funny and some of the audience didn't. Maybe Dexter Detention wasn't supposed to end with Dexter ending up in jail. Maybe it was supposed to end with Dee Dee bailing him out of detention. And I know for certain that the end of silliness was supposed to be entertaining and good. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. See you later, everyone.